I bet my life I'm a dice shaker. Electric lights on a skyscraper. It's up
Welcome
and down.
to Diceshaker Podcast. My name is Jordan Brown. I am the host of the Diceshaker Podcast. With me, as always, the man behind the scenes, Tyler Hartley. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Jordan.
We are here. We got a bit of a different episode today. So today is the November something. It's the first week in November. So we are approximately halfway through the football season. So I felt like it's a good time to do some big picture stuff. We got college football playoff rankings out for the first time. We'll talk about that. And then we'll go through some of the sort of season awards, big picture stuff in the NFL. Maybe give out a couple of futures, talk about how I think the next few months are going to shake out. Quick recap of the gambling record. 3 straight winning weeks in college football. We're not above 50% yet, but headed in the right direction. A little bit of a backslide in the NFL. 2 straight losing weeks after being on a historic pace through the first 7. Again, no reason for panic there. Just not really getting any bounces. That's gambling. That's the way this goes. Still think we're seeing the board great. If you're listening to this, then the needle thread is already dropped because we're recording this on a Thursday. I feel great about Bengals Ravens tonight. It's the most confident I've been in needle thread all year. Probably means I'm going to lose by 100. But still feel good about everything, about where we're at. Still think I'm seeing the board clear. So no real concern there. So getting into November, which means a few things in the college football world. Number one, it means the return of action. I just want to say, we don't do politics on this podcast. It was fucked up that they had the election on the first night of action. It's like, I wait all year for this. All year for action. I want action. And we'll talk about what makes action great in a second. And they're cutting into my action with, hey, Donald Trump's going to be the president. I don't care. It's 3rd and 3 for Central Michigan. Like, truly, I care more about that. So, Maction's back. We'll talk about that in a minute. But what everybody probably wants to talk about more, college football playoff rankings. So, first year of the 12-team playoff for college football. So, we get our first 12-team bracket to look at. Now, there's really no point in getting worked up about these rankings at this point because they're going to change a bunch. There are, by my count, I think still about 20 teams that could end up making the playoff in college football right now. So this could definitely change. But one thing that is clear from these first rankings, from this first bracket, is anybody who is still on the 12-team playoff sucks. We shouldn't have done it, Bo. You got to shut up. You got to shut up now. Like, I don't know what your points are anymore. We've had nothing but great games all year long. I mean, we have LSU Alabama this weekend, which is a playoff game now because the loser can't make it, basically. And then when you look at this bracket, we'll go through it. It's just great game after great game. And it's like, well, how could these, like, every game matters now because teams want to get into this playoff, and these matchups are fantastic. So, 2 things with the college football playoff that are confusing. Sorry, I'm sick, boys. That's the other thing, too. We're playing through injuries here. So they release a 1 through 12 ranking, right? But the bracket but the bracket doesn't necessarily go 1 through 12, and I'll explain why. So basically how it works is, for those of you who don't know, is the top 4 seeds all get buys through the first round, right? But the top 4 ranked teams are not necessarily the top 4 seeds because the top 4 seeds are the 4 highest ranked conference champions. And you're like, well, why does that happen? I'll tell you why that happened. Because the sport is run by the television networks, ESPN, Fox, CBS, NBC. And what they did not want is their conference championship games to be devalued from a TV entertainment product standpoint. So basically what that would mean is, all right, so if you were to get, this isn't applied to what the actual rankings are, but say we got this situation where Alabama and Georgia are the number 1, number 2 team in the country and they're meeting the SEC championship. That's happened before. Could easily happen again. If both of those teams, even the loser of that game in that situation, 1 versus 2, would not fall below 4. So that game wouldn't actually matter because both teams are getting a bye into the first round. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So how they do it is if you win your conference, then you are now eligible to get a top 4 seed. And so, for example, right now we have BYU, who is ranked 9th in the rankings, but they actually are the 4 seed because the Big Ten champion, Oregon, is number 1. The projected SEC champion, Georgia, 2. ACC, Miami, 3. And then the Big 12, which is for some reason still considered to be a power conference, their champion would be, in this case, BYU. And so they would jump a bunch of teams. They get the bye. Mm-hmm. So that's how that goes. Now, so what we're going to have is we're going to have a first round, a second round, Or 4 rounds. Yeah, 4 rounds of games. In the first round of games, and this is the sick part about the playoff, the games are going to be played on campus. So up until this year, home college football playoff games, as you've seen before, they're played at neutral sites. They're played at New Orleans, the Super Bowl sites essentially is where they play these games. Not the case in the first round this year. You get a home game, which in college football that matters a lot. To have home, there are going to be some crazy environments. So we'll go through it. So in the first round, we would have the first matchup of Indiana versus Tennessee. Now, people think Indiana's getting disrespected here in these rankings because they're undefeated. They play in the Big Ten, and some Big Ten teams with a loss, Ohio State, Penn State, are ranked ahead of them. Indiana has not really played anybody, and anybody who is seriously watching these games does not think that Indiana is like athletically on the same level as those bigger programs. That's not to say I don't like Indiana. I love Indiana. Their quarterback, Curtis Rourke, is Nathan Rourke's younger brother. Do you know who Nathan Rourke is?
Plays in the CFL.
He does play in the CFL. Yep. That is correct. So Nathan Rourke is a Canadian kid. Man, I guess now at this point. He's from Oakville. He got drafted to the CFL and dominated for a couple of years and then went down to the NFL, bounced around some practice squads. He's now back in the CFL. His younger brother is at Indiana right now and is lighting it up, playing great football. Their coach, Curt Cignetti, is one of the most badass dudes in college football. He was at James Madison before this, which was like barely a Division I program, and he took them to a conference championship. And he had a great press conference quote earlier in the year where they asked him, like, how do you're at Indiana. It's a big school, but it's not a football school. It's a basketball school. So how do you go and you got to compete against Michigan and Penn State and Ohio State and now Oregon, USC for all these recruits? So how do you do it? How do you convince guys to go there? And he goes, I walk into living rooms and tell them it's pretty simple. I win. Google me.
Yeah.
Which is sick. And if you Google Curt Cignetti, he does. That's all he does is win. Every school he's been at, he's going to win. Now, he's winning so much at Indiana right now that he's probably leaving Indiana maybe after 1 year. Like, the way this sport works. And so caveat there. So, the way the sport generally works is if you win at the little school, the big school comes and hires you, right? Caveat there is Indiana may be able to pay him enough to keep him there because Mark Cuban has decided that he would like Indiana football to be good.
Yeah.
He went to Indiana. He's obviously doesn't really own he doesn't own the Mavericks anymore, I don't think. He kind of sold it but kept control of it. There was a weird situation there. Then he was big rapid in election. He was big on the Democratic politics this past cycle with Kamala. They got trounced, so tough look for him. Another L. Mm-hmm. And then he's also very involved in Indiana football now. So they could have enough money to keep Cignetti. Anyway, so they're going to play Tennessee at Tennessee. That will be at least a very interesting game because you're going to get Tennessee being the classic SEC powerhouse, crazy good roster. Maybe not living up to their like potential in terms of like what guys they have on the field and the product they get out of it versus Indiana, who is obviously the scrappy, hey, nobody expected us to be here. We're just well coached and we play hard. So if Indiana's probably going to be, I would say, a touchdown dog if that game were to happen. And it would be really interesting to see can they actually slay the giant. Because again, they have not played a big school up until this point. So next game we have Ohio State. Thank you for the Kleenex, sir. The next game would be Ohio State. We probably should have done this in order of the rankings, but it doesn't matter. The next game would be Boise State at Ohio State. And now in these rankings, they have Ohio State losing the Big Ten championship game to Oregon. Oregon beat them in the regular season, so I understand how they get there. That's a game where like Ohio State could play pretty bad and probably still win that game just on the athletic advantage. They do have Ashton Genty on Boise State. Do you know who Ashton Genty is? Have you heard about this guy?
Heard of this guy?
He is probably having the best running back season in college football of the last 15 years since like Adrian Peterson was at Oklahoma and maybe as far back as like 1988 with Barry Sanders. It is his like if you look at his props for like anytime touchdown score going into games, it's like minus 800. He is dominating. Boise State plays in the Mountain West, though. So the level of competition there is not quite the same. Probably a rude awakening for them there, but never put it past a Ryan Day Ohio State team to just gag one away, which would be phenomenal television for that to watch. So that's two. We're 2 for 2 on great games in the college football playoff. 2 for 2 for those keeping it home. Still anybody crying about the playoff. Next game, Notre Dame at Penn State. Wonderful football game. Wonderful football. Can either of those teams win the national championship? Of course not. Neither one has neither one has a coach I really like. Neither one has an offense I really like. But that's two schools with huge brands, huge fan bases. They'll be played at Penn State, which is a great environment. They'll probably do the whiteout. That will be a banger of a game. It'll probably end like 16-14 or something stupid like that. But banger of a game. I got wet. Oh, yeah. Yeah, we'll get rid of this. Yeah. Ugh. And the last quarterfinal game, we would get Alabama at Texas. They played last year. Anybody have any fun at that game? Was that fun? Did we enjoy that? When Texas went into Tuscaloosa and beat their ass and maybe started the Nick Saban retirement path. I had a great time watching that game. I'm going to have a great time watching this game too. A lot on the line for both teams. Both teams probably convince themselves they can win the national championship. So that'll be huge too. And then after that, we get, Miami, Georgia, Oregon, BYU, the Mormons. We're going to get the Mormons involved. Who doesn't want that? That's fantastic. Bunch of 32-year-olds out there playing football. It's fantastic because they get to do, for those of you who don't know how BYU operates, it's kind of a scam, to be honest with you. They have to do, if you go to BYU, so it's Mormon University, right? So first of all, you go there, you can't drink, you can't have sex. It's fucking crazy. But what you do have to do if you go there is you have to go do a 2-year mission, which basically means you have to go to Africa for 2 years and try to convince Africans to be Mormons for 2 years. And then you get to come back and then you finish playing. So they're all fucking 28 years old. All these fucking guys are all Samoans, huge, massive island type dudes. They're a ton of fun to watch all the time. So there's just going to be a ton of great games in the college football playoff, and it's going to lead to just weeks through the middle of December through the national championship and the second week of January of just awesome games. And anybody who's upset about that, I honestly just don't think you like football, to be honest with you. I think you're just you just kind of fear change a little bit. And it's this creates more football. I don't understand why that's a big deal. Now, one thing I will say, I said earlier, that there's about 20 teams right now who could still make the playoff. And that's true. I think there are, let's go through it. I'll go through the teams until I find one that I don't think can win the national championship. So start at the top. Oregon, can they win the national championship? Yeah, they can definitely win the national championship. Georgia, could they win the national championship? Yep. Miami, I'll say yes because the offense is spectacular. They're winning games 56-48, that kind of thing. They don't play any defense at all. They have Cam Ward, big time Heisman candidate. So I'll say yes, but I'd be skeptical of them. And then Ohio State can win. That would require Ryan Day to win a big game, which not really his strong suit, but they are talented enough to win. And I think that might be where it stops, to be honest. I think it might be. And as a guy, listen, you go back and listen to the first episode we did this year. I'm sitting on Oregon plus 800 to win the national championship. So I love that. But people would say Texas, I think. To me, they don't have it at quarterback. Their quarterback is Quinn Ewers, who probably is not even the best quarterback in the team. I think Arch Manning's probably better than him at this point, but it would not be a bad look for the program for them to bench Ewers at this point. He hasn't really done anything to lose the job. But when you watch him play, he doesn't see the game well at all. And so when they ask him to play quarterback in so much of that, hey, sit in this pocket, read the defense out, and deliver a ball downfield, he can't really do it. He can throw the ball short where it's hey, there's no thinking involved here. It's just we're running a screen or some type of slant where it's just one read before pre-snap, get the ball out. Or when Sark, their coach, schemes a guy wide open for him, he can throw the ball and hit it. But to win a championship, to go in and they would have their path based on these rankings would be beat Alabama at home. They could do that. Beat Miami, and then beat likely Georgia, and then beat probably Oregon or Ohio State in the national championship game. That's just a very, very difficult path to do if you've got, what we would call a Jag. Jag plus. We'll give him Jag plus because I do think he is talented, but not a stud, not a star at all at quarterback. Going to be very hard for them to do. And then after that, it's Penn State hasn't won a big game in years. Alabama possible, but have shit the bed in a bunch of big games. They're talented enough to do it, but their path, they have to beat Texas on the road, right? Like the path for these teams that are going to be on the low end of these rankings, it's just so hard to win that many games against that many good teams in a row. Getting that bye, winning your conference is huge. It's one more game you don't have to play. It's an extra week of rest to get guys healthy, and the team that you're getting, unless you're getting like, you know, when Ohio State comes out of Boise State, are they going to be in a slugfest? Probably not. But like Texas, Alabama is going to be a war. And that team's got to come out of that and play Miami. And if they get through that, they got to play Georgia. Like that's very, very difficult to do. So winning your conference is definitely important, which is a good way that this thing has been set up. So like I said, it's going to be interesting down the stretch. It's going to create a lot of drama in these games to see who gets into the playoff. The early playoff games are going to be great matchups. Can a lot of these teams ultimately win? No, probably not. But it's going to be great games. And listen, and I will say this, of all the teams who can win, none of them are perfect. They all could lose games. For sure they could. All of them are flawed. Oregon has flaws. Georgia clearly has flaws. They've lost to Alabama. Miami, the defense isn't great. And, you know, BYU is BYU. And, you know, I love the Mormons. But, like, let's be honest. We're not winning national championships with the Mormons. That's not going to happen. So, like I said, overall, very excited about the college football playoff. We'll do a weekly breakdown as the rankings change week to week, as the bracket changes week to week, because there's going to be volatility to it, no question about it. And anybody who thinks this isn't fun is a shout out to the man. We haven't brought this term out yet. You know who John Gruden is?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so you know why John Gruden isn't in the NFL anymore?
Like racist shit, right?
Yeah.
Was that not like the racist allegations?
He did some racist stuff too. That's not what I'm talking about.
But that's not what was?
Because that wasn't sick. We don't condone racism. The racism wasn't sick.
No, I didn't think you were condoning
what
it.
What he did was sick. I'll tell you what he did do that was sick. Was it the emails he had a bunch of emails get leaked, and then he said some racist stuff. No question about it.
Okay.
But what he also said in it was that he called Roger Goodell an anti-football pussy. I'm gonna go on
the context of that. Is funny.
It was basically about like I think like COVID stuff or concussion stuff or something like that. But I'm gonna go on record and say right now, if you are against the 12-team playoff at this point, you are an anti-football pussy. Like I fully believe that. You don't love this game the way you say you do. You're actually working against it. You want to hold it back. You're an anti-football pussy. We might start labeling people anti-football pussies if I have to do it. I don't want to do it. I don't like doing that. All right, it doesn't make me feel good to start calling people out for that. But if I got to hear more arguments about how there should be less games, that's anti-football pussy behavior, if I've ever seen it.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense.
Doesn't make any sense.
The more that you explain it to me, too, it doesn't make any sense.
Doesn't make any sense. All right, so that's the college stuff. Let's get to the NFL. So, what we're going to do for the NFL is we're going to break down kind of the major future markets as I see them right now. We're going to start kind of with the personal awards. So we'll do Defensive Player of the Year. We'll do Offensive Player of the Year. We'll do MVP. We'll talk about conference winners and Super Bowl winners. And then we'll kind of go in that order to kind of build it a little bit. I'll try to give you guys what I think is the best future out of all of it. I don't think I want to do division winners because that's not as interesting to me. Let me see here. Let me pull up my on-season awards. Here we go. Okay, so let's start with Defensive Player of the Year. Now, you know what? Let's do Rookie of the Year. Just real quick off the top. I don't. You know what? Do you want to do Comeback Player of the Year?
Definitely.
Because the markets don't really make a ton of sense to me. So Kirk Cousins is minus 140 Comeback Player of the Year right now.
That doesn't feel like a comeback, really. Though. It's kind of the...
Well, you have to...
Like, I know he had that record-breaking game or whatever.
You have to get hurt the year before, right? Like, they did not give Comeback Player of the Year to DeMar Hamlin. So that's kind of crazy. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah. So
you have to get hurt the year before. Kirk did get hurt. Obviously, the Falcons are leading that division right now. The offense has looked good for most of the year. I don't think they're a very good team overall. I don't think Kirk is doing the Kirk thing where it's like, yeah, he has a million weapons and like he's just playing within the scheme and he's the best version of that play action merchant guy that we talk about. So I don't, the one after that who I think deserves it, I don't necessarily know why the odds are this way though, because number 2 is Joe Burrow at plus 470. Joe Burrow's coming off a season-ending injury and playing at an elite level right now. Now, the record's not there for the team, but that's not necessarily Joe Burrow's fault. Joe Burrow is playing.
Doesn't that kind of go into it, though, too? Like,
yeah,
be like
the
an
record's
going to
matter.
So, yeah.
But, like, that's my point with Kirk is, like, I don't really believe in the Falcons to, like, I don't think the Falcons are just going to run away with that division.
Yeah, no, fair. But, I mean, they're sitting at, what, 7-2 right now? 7-3?
Yeah,
maybe 6-3,
something like that. Yeah,
but, you know what I mean? Like, that's a pretty... Right now, as the standings set, like, that's... like that that's better than Joe Burrow being a comeback player of the year.
Yeah, I don't know. I just have a hard time with it where it's like
I agree with you.
If
though.
I
don't
said to
believe in
anybody
him.
right now, we have a game on Sunday, you can have Kirk or you can have Joe play quarterback for you. Nobody's taking Kirk.
Of course not. But if you're gonna run, it's got to be some consistency with these, like giving these awards out or whatever. You're never gonna give it to a guy whose team is like not
because
even
the
in
team
playoff
sucks.
picture.
Yeah, well, but all right, but then some of the rest of these odds don't make sense.
Okay.
So then the next one at plus 800. So really, they have this as like a 1-horse race, maybe a 2-horse race, and then nobody else because your boy J.K. Dobbins.
Bro,
plus
I don't know
800.
how he's not higher than them. He's on a good team or 5-3
Well, I will say,
team because
no-
he's running back, right? Like,
It's
that's
running
why-
back.
Yeah.
It's running back. He has, and like I will say, the one thing that's working in his favor is nobody's had to come back for more than that guy.
No,
like that.
dude.
Well, there is one guy, and he's next on the list, and that's DeMar Hamlin.
Yes. Okay. True. Yeah. Death does.
But it's like if
supersede
we didn't give it to
everything.
Hamlin last year, why are we giving it to him now? First of all, he should have won it. Like, it should be called the DeMar Hamlin Award.
That's true.
They really
rename
should.
it.
They
Yes,
name it
yeah.
after him. But he's plus 1,000 right now. And then after that, it's Aaron Rodgers. It's not going to be Rodgers. And then one who I actually do like, I think he's getting a little disrespected in these, is Kyler Murray at plus 1,400. Now, I famously bet Kyler Murray MVP earlier this year, and that's not going to happen.
That's gone to a
That's
way
dead.
bigger number
It's
now.
not his. He's playing great though. The problem is that team stinks.
Yeah.
So he's at plus 1,400 right now. So out of those, I think Burrow's the best value at plus 470. If the Falcons start to lose and the Bengals start to win, that to me is the best future for comeback player of the year. I guess the problem there would be if the Falcons do win that division, then Kirk's probably going to win it, I guess. But that feels hollow to me because like I just don't. It's not Kirk's not the reason that team's playing that well.
That's a good call though too. I see what you mean on the future bet though. It's like, well, if you don't believe in the Falcons, don't bet on Kirk because you're not getting any value.
Yeah.
And it's a team that I agree with you where it's
Yeah.
like one of the bigger pretenders in the league.
Yeah.
At 6. They haven't played really anybody.
Now I would
yet.
say if you think it's too bad we're recording this on Thursday. If you think the Bengals are going to win tonight against the Ravens and like go on a little bit of a run, then like better rather than bet the Bengals tonight or bet the Bengals in any of their next couple games, I'd rather take Joe Burrow at plus 470 to be comeback player of the year. If you think they're going to win like tonight against the Ravens,
It's a massive game
and then,
for them too.
you know what I'm saying?
It's a massive game
They
for
have to
that
have
division.
it.
Yeah,
They have to
absolutely.
Have it. They have to have it. So and now if they lose, your bet's dead. That's what I'm saying. Like if you're thinking about betting the Bengals, I would just take Burrow at plus 470. You get way, but you're basically getting Bengals money line at plus 470.
Yeah.
Now they have to win other games after that, but I just think that's a way better bet than
This will be one of the tougher matchups for them
taking the
coming up
Bengals.
too. So.
Yeah. We're gonna skip the rookie of the year stuff because it's over. Jared Verse is minus 190 to win defensive rookie of the year. The next guy is Latu at plus 750. The next guy is Quinyon Mitchell at plus 2100. That race is over. We're definitely skipping offensive rookie of the year because then give it to Jaden Daniels right now.
Yes, yeah.
He's
absolutely.
won 7 rookie of the weeks already.
Yeah.
We're only through 9 weeks of the season.
Yep.
So like that's over. The Jaden Daniels thing is over. The offense rookie thing's over. Jaden Daniels has that wrapped up. Defensive player of the year. Now this one, whoever does win this should be given an asterisk because it would be Aiden Hutchinson's award if he didn't get hurt. He was definitely on pace to do that. This one is kind of a laugher as well. It's TJ Watt at minus 135. After that, it's Chris Jones at plus 1,000. Trey Hendrickson at plus 11. Will Anderson 14-1. Nick Bosa, shout out. Nick Bosa's having he's a happy guy right now. Did you see him get out there last week with like the MAGA hat on?
No, I didn't see. So I saw him do that last week.
Yeah.
I can just imagine he's doing well.
Yeah, he's having a great time.
That's exactly what he wanted to happen.
I bet their pops is having a great week too.
Fuck yeah, dude.
You think the strip clubs in Florida aren't popping right now? But they're raking money. So Nick Bosa, and then Dexter Lawrence is getting disrespected there. He plays for the Giants, and the Giants suck. Dexter Lawrence might be the best. He's definitely the best interior defensive lineman in the NFL right now. It might be the best defensive lineman, period. When you calculate like his value against the run, he can still rush the passer from the inside there. He's fantastic. I love watching Dexter Lawrence. So him at plus 1,800 doesn't make a ton of sense to me. Best value here that I see, I think, is Will Anderson at plus 1,400, just because that number's so big. He's going to have a crazy second half to get like that. Because if you're going to win Defensive Player of the Year, you have to have sacks. That's why TJ Watt is so high. But he is very clearly, to me, the next guy to jump into that. TJ Watt, Myles Garrett, Aiden Hutchinson before he got hurt had jumped into that category for me of like absolute game record defensive end of you need a plan for him every single snap. If you leave a tackle one-on-one with him, you are going to have a bad day. You have to keep a tight end to chip. You have to keep a running back into chip. You cannot do like like straight drop back passing. Like he changes what an offense does just by being on the field. I believe Will Anderson is that type of player. He did get hurt a little bit last week, so that's probably some of the concern there. But if he gets a 3 or 4 sack game here somewhere in the next month, I think you see his odds skyrocket, especially if the Texans are going to win that division, which it seems like they are. So value there, Will Anderson plus 1,400, but obviously anytime it's 1,400, long shot. Rookie, what do you, just for fun, what do you think Jaden Daniels' number to win Rookie of the Year is?
Minus 250.
Try 1350.
Minus 1350. Dude, I thought minus 250. I thought you were going to come back and be like, come on, be realistic.
No, it's over.
Christ,
it's over at minus 1350. And listen.
I mean, well deserved, though, too,
Well
right?
deserved. No question about it. And I will say this. I have sympathy for the fans of teams that are historically awful, right? So the Commander, I'm a Titans fan. We've gone through our things for forever. The Commanders definitely fall into that category. They do have new ownership now, so I understand why people are like, it's different. I just have to, as the integrity of this podcast, of me being a football guy, I would not be doing my duty if I didn't point out that RG3 basically did the same thing. It was basically the exact same thing. He gets drafted high by Washington. He shows up. He's awesome right away. His rookie year's incredible. They start thinking about, oh my gosh, look at the possibilities. We finally did it. We have our quarterback. Here we go. He gets hurt a bunch of times. It's over. He's now one of the worst football commentators I've ever heard in my life. Truly awful. A disgrace. Anybody who allows him to talk into a microphone while a football game is going on, I'm anti-football pussy, I would have to say. Like Fox execs who are like allowing that is like, you hate football for sure, that you allow this man to be in my ears the entire time I watch a game. Disgusting display he puts on every week. Okay, now this is where it starts to get interesting. So, NFL Offensive Player of the Year. Now, the Offensive Player of the Year is basically who is the MVP who isn't a quarterback. That's what the Offensive Player of the Year comes down to. And you could see it as we go through the list here. So it's basically the league has decided that MVP is a quarterback award, and we're just going to give Offensive Player of the Year to the best offensive player. We're not going to include quarterback. So we've got right now my guy Derrick Henry at minus 150, having a great year. Happy for him. Obviously a longtime Titan, very close to my heart. Loved watching him play for years. That Ravens offense is on at a historic pace. People think the Lions are the best offensive football. I actually think it's the Ravens. If we just did blind resume of like, would you like this player versus this player, I think you'd end up with more Ravens on your roster than you did Lions. The Lions offensive line is a big advantage for sure over what the Ravens have. But I mean, when you think about like what Lamar's doing right now, we'll talk about him in a minute when we get to MVP, and then the bind that the defense gets put in, where you have to be concerned about. You have to have guys in the box because there's Derrick Henry and because Lamar's an asset in the run game. So you need an extra guy to account for Lamar in the run game, right? But if you want to play that one high stuff and bring guys up, Lamar's shown he's very, very capable of getting the ball downfield to guys like Zay Flowers and Rashad Bateman to hurt you there. They are playing incredible offensive football, and again, I think I would take them as the best offense in the league over the Lions. So Derrick Henry at minus 150. He's actually on pace. He's going to get close to 2,000 yards. As long as no injuries and they don't start. If they wrap that division up and they sit him or whatever. But he's gonna be about 1,700 yards. Leads the league in touchdowns. Obviously, a great year for Derrick Henry. I'd love to see him win it. I love Derrick Henry. Number 2 is Saquon Barkley at plus 250. Interesting little bet there for Saquon. I had kind of written Saquon off after the past couple of years in New York, not as I knew he was still good, but as that sort of one of the few running backs. Derrick Henry's in the category. McCaffrey, when he's healthy, is in that category of you can actually run your offense through that guy. He can be the focal point of your offense, and you can be successful that way. We're seeing it with the Eagles right now, and the Eagles are getting better week over week over week. They right now, people would probably say the Commanders are the favorite to win that division. I like the Eagles to win that division. I think there's a little bit of fool's gold going on with the Commanders, where it's so fresh and so new that they're getting overhyped a little bit. Whereas the Eagles are playing a very consistent brand of football. They have to play a specific way, which ultimately makes them not Super Bowl contenders in my mind. But if you told me they won that division, I think they would beat the Commanders in a straight-up game on a neutral site. So, and Saquon has obviously been the biggest part of their offense. He's playing fantastic. He still has every bit of juice he ever had. Obviously, the backwards hurdle last week. That's one of the crazier things I've ever seen. On
Yeah, that was just. I mean, that's just a nice athletic display to see, man. Like that was incredible to watch.
It's crazy because of how athletic it is. It's also crazy because of how reckless that fucking is.
Yeah,
that's
also,
an insane thing
a guy
to do.
that's gone through injuries to just jump backwards freely like
Just
that.
be mid-air with your back
Crazy.
to the defense with the ball. Like that's
Well, even like what he said after, he's like, I was just playing ball. Like, yeah, absolutely.
No
That's like
question,
an in
sure.
the moment, like, oh, I need to do
and
something type
that's
thing.
one reason why it's crazy.
Yeah.
It's also like if you like you should never do that again.
Yeah, but that's something you want to see though too, right? Like you love seeing guys just go out and do shit like that.
Not if I'm a guy who's cashing a check from the Eagles right now. I don't want the most valuable guy in the room.
Sure. Yeah, not if you're the Eagles.
No.
I mean, everybody else in
sick.
the world.
Oh,
though,
yeah, no,
that's
sick.
so
Yeah,
sick
no question
to
about
see,
it.
man.
Yeah,
See
that's what I'm saying. It was
guys
crazy.
do that.
It was crazy. It was nuts. But not at all advisable. And and here's what I will say right now. There's a kid out there somewhere. I don't know where he is. Probably in the States somewhere. He's a high school football player who saw that and who was going to try that.
Oh, he's gonna replicate. Yeah,
And that kid is never going to walk again.
it's so crazy.
Somebody will snap. It'll be, like the Steph Curry thing where it's like you would go to like little kid basketball games and they're all like chucking threes. That's annoying. Nobody's going to die.
Yeah.
Some high school running back is going to try to jump over another guy backwards, and he's going to get his neck snapped in half. And I don't want to see it happen. Just telling you, when it happens, I told you first that it was going. I promise you. So that
Well, also too, I mean, like Saquon did, and it's like no one expects that, so it's hard to react so quickly to it or whatever. People might actually look for that now too, and you could get fucked up trying to jump backwards.
Yeah.
Like, if a defensive player's sitting on it, like, oh, he's gonna hurtle backwards.
do you think
there.
anybody wants to be on your highlight tape?
No,
Of like,
yeah.
as soon as I see you turn around, I'm jumping up too.
Absolutely.
Like I
yeah.
will, you know what I'm saying? It's like the basketball equivalent of like I'm not gonna get dunked on. I'll just foul.
No,
you.
yeah, you just hammer.
Yeah, like
absolutely.
I'll take my 15-yard. I'll grab you by the fucking face mask. I will take my 15-yard penalty. I'll get kicked out of the game. I don't care. You know what I'm not going to be? I'm not going to be the guy who, for the next 20 years, I got to watch you backwards jump over me. That's not happening. So there are going to be some hard fouls if anybody tries that.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, absolutely.
So plus 250 for Saquon. I like that bet. I think that might be the one that I like the most. I just think a plus number for a guy like if the Eagles go on a little bit of a run here, if Derrick Henry starts to slow down a little bit just because of their way ahead and or an injury type situation, then I think Saquon becomes the runaway favorite. After that, Justin Jefferson at plus 750. I understand he's the best receiver in football. The stats are great. He is, again, like one of those, we've talked about him before, true X receivers of just line him up and it changes everything the defense has to do. They have to account for him. You don't have to do anything to try to get him open. Sam Bradford, well, funny, similar guy. Sam Darnold owes him so much money.
Oh, yeah.
What this next contract that Sam Darnold's about to get, like half needs to go to Justin Jefferson. Like whatever the signing bonus is, just give it to Justin, and then like you can live off the salary because like he gave you that, like he did that for you. He when 4 generations of Darnolds from now are not working a day in their lives and are just like riding jet skis in the Bahamas and like fucking supermodels and stuff, they should all have Justin Jefferson tattoos on. Like that should be a rule.
So funny. Just murals of them in their
Yes,
house.
yes.
Yeah.
They should preach the gospel of Justin Jefferson. That's what they should do in between, like going on yachts and stuff like that, off the generational wealth that Sam Darnold's about to get this offseason. We just need to pay homage to the man who made it all, right? Like you know how like after games, like I want to thank Jesus Christ who made it all possible. Every single time a Darnold descendant goes to the bank, I just want to thank the man Justin Jefferson who made this all possible for me. Through him, all things are possible.
Amen.
So that's 750. And then it's really a 3-man race because then after that we got Jamar Chase plus 2,900, Lamar plus 2,900, and my guy CD at plus 3,500. CD would be in contention if he had a quarterback. If he didn't have one of the all-time scam artists, Dak Prescott, throwing him the ball. And again, we love the scam artists here, right? So credit to Dak for getting the biggest contract of all time and then just decide, nah, I'm going to stink now. Pretty great stuff there. Pretty great stuff to get that all fully guaranteed and then just be like, I'm done working. That's great bag getter stuff there from Dak, but tough for my guy CD. So, brings us to the MVP. The most competitive race, the one probably with the most value if you wanted to bet on it now. So, it's all quarterbacks, obviously. In order, it's Josh Allen plus 250, Lamar plus 280, Mahomes plus 450, Goff plus 800, Jaden Daniels plus 800 for MVP, and then Joe Burrow plus 16. First of all, Joe Burrow, how can Joe Burrow be in the MVP conversation, but he's way down the board in comeback player of the year? That make any sense? You know who's got good MVP odds? Fucking Kirk Cousins.
Weird.
What are Kirk's MVP odds? plus 2,600. He's not even Jalen Hurts is ahead of Kirk Cousins. So I don't understand what that's all about in that market there. I hate that Kirk Cousins bet. So go from the top. Josh Allen, obviously playing great football right now, making me feel correct about the take I had early in the season that the Bills offense was going to be elite and that Josh Allen was going to play well. Obviously the strategy they employed this offseason of getting away from Diggs, getting him more weapons so that he can spread the ball a little bit more has helped. Obviously, the turnover thing is the big story. He only has one pick through 9 weeks of the year. That's like the anti-Josh.
It is crazy, but I feel like it's like I watch him and there's more turnover. But I guess there's not. No, like he hasn't been
one pick
the
whole year.
Yeah, he feels like it, but no.
And so your bet there is basically like, do you think that's sustainable or not? I am not comfortable putting money behind a notion of Josh Allen isn't going to turn the ball over. Now they play the Chiefs in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And again, so that's one of those situations where if you think the Bills are beating the Chiefs 2 weeks from now, you should bet Josh Allen plus 250 today.
Okay, another question though. Do you think so say he starts turning the ball, say he starts getting some interceptions, do you think he keeps enough touchdowns up to kind of offset that number and keep his MVP candidacy up?
He'll still be in the mix.
You know what I mean?
Unless they start losing games like crazy, he'll be in the mix. So as long as they keep winning and as long as he keeps even if he diverts to like the Josh Allen of the high highs and the low lows, he's still going to be in the mix, no question about it. But then you look at the problem is you look at the guy behind him, Lamar. Lamar is obviously a 2-time MVP. So narrative matters, right? Narrative matters a lot with MVP. Yep. And so there are a lot of people out there who have been in the Lamar corner for a long, long time. Obviously, he doesn't have the playoff success that Mahomes has or even that Josh Allen has. But he would be a 3-time MVP. He is the engine of a historically good offense. He is, if you wanted to just go by the definition of the word, like most valuable, like who brings the biggest value to their team, I think that is Lamar. Because if you take him out and put in replacement level quarterback X, it changes everything about that offense. Because now you can load it up because you don't have to worry about the quarterback in the run game. And if I do have to worry about the quarterback in the run game, because I don't even know who their backup is, it's always like a Tyler Huntley type.
Yeah.
Then I'm not worried about you throwing the ball down the field. So it changes everything for me as a defense. The like I said, we talked about earlier, the bind that the Ravens are putting defenses in is you're wrong no matter what you do.
Yes.
If you want to play too high and keep guys back, they're going to cram the ball down your throat. If you want to step up and play super aggressive and stop the run, that ball's going to Zay Flowers on a cross through over the middle. And it's going to be in your end zone in about 30 seconds. So he creates it to where there's no right answer for a defense, and that is ultimate value. Plus 450 for Mahomes. That'll be obviously like Mahomes is just always they're undefeated. He is not playing to his normal standards, and honestly, I don't know if he ever will again in terms of the stats. Like I just don't think that offense is interested in playing in a way where it would allow Mahomes to have like the 45 plus touchdown season, the 5,000 yard season, because they are much more interested and we'll talk about the Chiefs when we get to the Super Bowl stuff, but they are much more interested in doing whatever is necessary to win this game and nothing more.
Yes. Yeah.
And obviously we saw he got a little banged up on the Monday Nighter this past week. So they are very similar to like kind of like what the Warriors were in their run with KD, where it's like they could not give a shit about a regular season football game. That team will start to carry January, right? And so I just don't think they're ever going to play in a way that will allow him, and I don't think they'll ever do this again, unless the roster changes in a way where it necessitates it. But I think if they given the choice, they would not play in a way that's going to allow him to create the stats necessary to win. Now, if they go undefeated, right, that's still possible at this point. If they don't lose, then the narrative would be, well, I mean, you kind of have to give him the MVP at that point if they're going to have an undefeated regular season. Yeah,
kind of. It's kind of weird though too, because like that's a great point you make by Lamar Jackson, where it's just like, what do you like? How do you not give it to him on that point? If Baltimore goes out, say win the division,
yep,
and they have a quarterback like Josh Allen brings the other element. It's the same kind of thing, right? Like it puts you in that same kind of bind, whatever. Yep. But like it kind of just comes down to whatever team finishes best, that quarterback is probably going to win it. And Mahomes winning it, it's only on the record though. It's not based on the way he's playing whatsoever. He's not really.
It's not based on the way he's playing, and the argument would be like, so Mahomes got hurt on Monday night. He actually didn't miss any time, which is another like very like Brady, LeBron type thing of like, oh my God, look at disaster. Oh nope, never mind, he's fine. there was a feeling that Carson Wentz could go into that game and still, because of just how good Andy Reid is and how comfortable that Chiefs offense is together and playing the way they play, that Wentz could have gone in there and won that game. Mm-hmm. If Lamar or Josh gets hurt, it's the old Tom Moore was the offensive coordinator for the Colts back in the day when they had Peyton Manning, and they were famous for Peyton Manning's backups never got any reps in practice. Never. It was Peyton took every single rep all week in practice, and Lamar and Josh do similar things. And one time they asked Tom Moore about it. They go, "Why is Peyton the only one who gets the reps? What if he gets hurt?" And he said, "If Peyton gets hurt, we're fucked, and we don't practice getting fucked."
It's a good line. Cold.
Great line, and we're in similar situations with Allen and Lamar. Now, I don't think that if Mahomes got hurt, that we could consider the Chiefs still to be Super Bowl contenders with Carson Wentz, but they wouldn't fall off in the way that, like, it wouldn't be as catastrophic quite as it is for Allen and Jackson. So I understand that there. Goff plus 800 is just line type. I don't think anybody really thinks that Goff is the one making that go. That team is sort of a sum of its parts team. They have to play a very specific way, and credit to them, they do. They're very good at playing the way they need to play. But I don't think you can give the MVP to a guy whose main the biggest thing he brings to the table is he's not going to fuck it up. That can't be like line one of the MVP resume. So Goff I'm out on. Daniels I'm out on as well. They'll give him Rookie of the Year, obviously. I just don't think that team's going to win enough for them to get MVP. I don't think they're going to be like a top 2 seed in the NFC. And then Burrow, same thing, plus 1,600. Is, again, he's playing great football, and the fact that he's on this list with the record the Bengals have is a testament to that. But there's just I just don't think they're going to win enough games for him to get it. So my MVP bet at this point in the season would probably be Lamar at plus 280. I think it's the safest thing to happen. All you need is one Josh Allen game and Lamar to continue to play the way he has. And if the Chiefs were to slip up a little bit and the Ravens were able to grab that 1 seed, you will see the media start to stand on the table for Lamar to be MVP again. And that drives a lot of it. Honestly, that drives a ton of it. So that's the individual awards. That's kind of how I see the futures markets. Some interesting bets there, but definitely not a ton of suspense in some of them. Let's talk about conference champions. Where can I get my conference champions? Here we go. So we'll start with the more interesting one. We'll start with the NFC. So quickly run through what we've got here. Really a 3-team race, but we'll include everybody just for fun. Lions plus 210, Niners plus 500. You've been listening to this all year. You understand how I feel about the Niners. It's over for them. They are not a Super Bowl contender. They're not a contender for the NFC. Caveat, we'll see what they look like this week with Christian McCaffrey back. He is the type of player, if he's healthy. We don't know. We have no idea what kind of condition this guy is in right now. We have multiple trips to Germany, double Achilles tendonitis. That can't be good. So we'll see what that looks like, but I don't think they deserve that spot. The Eagles at plus 500. Again, I legitimately think at this point in the season, the way that defense has gotten better, and they're similar to the Lions, they have to play their certain style. But if you said the Eagles came out of the NFC, I would believe you at this point. It means they would have to go on the road, likely, and beat the Lions, which is a tall order. That would be a fantastic game to watch, to be honest. But if they can get their offensive line healthy, they can keep the defense on the level it's at, and you don't get like. Problem is they got a low spade at coach too, so that may end up costing them some games. But the Eagles at plus 500 is good value, I believe. The Vikings plus 950, nope. We're not quite there on the Vikings yet, where people have figured out how fraudulent they are, because they're the team that is. They will beat the hell out of bad teams. Mm-hmm. If you give them a bad team, they're going to beat the hell out of them. They cannot hang with a legitimate good team. We saw that when they played. They jumped the Lions in a game they absolutely had to have. And they didn't have to have, but they were coming off the bye week. The Lions had just come off blowing out the Cowboys. It was a huge letdown spot for the Lions. The Vikings, it was probably their biggest home game they've had in years, and they couldn't win that game. And they jumped them early. They got out to like a 10-point lead. The Lions tried to hand them the game by going for a fake punt on their own 30. Didn't get it. They still couldn't get it done. So I don't have any confidence in the Vikings being able to win a big game against a good team. The Falcons, we've talked about them. They're also plus 950. No thank you with the Kirk Cousins thing. And then the Commanders plus 950. The Commanders, I think, in the second half of the season are going to be my favorite team to fade, I think. The hype on them is a little. It's more than a little out of control at this point. I understand that Jaden Daniels has been very good for a rookie. I understand the offense has played great. Cliff has him clicking. Credit to Cliff. That defense is still really bad. And they added Marshawn Lattimore this week, and that matters. He helps. No question about it. It's a good pickup for them. I just, again, when it comes down to playoff game on the road against a good team, is that defense going to be able to get the stops required? And or can Jaden Daniels, if the defense can't get the stops required, can Jaden Daniels score 40 in a playoff game on the road? I'm going to need to see that before I lay any money on it. Is there any long shot I like? The Packers at plus 1,000 I don't mind. Obviously, the Jordan Love health thing is probably the biggest reason they're so low. Mm-hmm. But I really, really like that defense. I really like their coach. It's a tough place to go play late in the year as it gets cold. I still think I would act... It's such a tough division, so it's hard to say they're going to come out and win that division. But I think the Packers are at plus 1,000 is pretty good value. And then after that, it's like the Cardinals, the Rams, the Bucs, like teams that can't win the NFC. So I would say best value for me is the Eagles at plus 500 there. I think they're the second best team in the NFC right now. They match up well with the Lions, obviously on the road, so that's tough. But that would be basically a game where them and the Lions are going to play the exact same way, and I think at this point I like the Eagles' defense a little better. If Aiden Hutchinson was still healthy, I'd probably feel a little differently about this, but I'm going to take the Eagles to win the NFC at plus 500. AFC. This one's not as exciting. You know why this one's not as exciting? Same shit I've been saying all year. I can't wait to the end of this year when the Chiefs win the Super Bowl and we get to make the compilation video of all the times that I said that they were going to win the Super Bowl and we need to cancel Christmas. Listen, we are way past canceling Christmas. I may cancel New Year's at this point. I might cancel Valentine's Day. We might get all the way to St. Patrick's Day before we get a holiday again. I'm serious, man. Like the Chiefs saying, and we'll do more on them because we're going to talk Super Bowl winners, but the Chiefs at plus 180 to win the AFC is the best bet available here. For fun, we'll run through the rest of it. The Ravens at plus 300. Love the Ravens. Love what they're doing. That offense is so fun to watch. I don't trust the defense. I just straight up don't trust the defense. They get scored on by everybody. They don't really they have to manufacture a pass rush. They have to blitz a lot. That's no way to live in the long term. I don't really love their secondary. They don't have a lot of depth, so they can't sustain injuries on that side. And I still have questions about their offensive line, to be honest. They built like if the Ravens were to get down, and we've seen this in their losses, if the Ravens get down in a game, they're kind of screwed because their offensive line can't really protect for that long. So you can't just do straight drop back passing. You still have to have the run game involved. It's very hard to come back that way. And their defense just straight up can't get stops when they need them. So that's their fatal flaw, I think, and why I wouldn't take them. The Bills at plus 400, very similarly. I don't necessarily think the defense is there. They do have a little bit more of a consistent pass rush, which plays later in the year. But like in order for them to win the AFC, first of all, I'm going to need to see it. They would need Josh Allen to continue to play at an absolute superhuman level. He can't even be great. He needs to be like perfect for them to be able to pull off a win against a very good team. And again, the way it's shaken out, you're going to have to go to KC and beat them. And it's I reserve the right to change this opinion after they play the Chiefs next week. That could change if they go out there and dominate them. It probably won't change that much for me, but could change a little bit. But again, I'm going to need to see it from them. And then the rest of it, the Texans at plus 1,000. Don't think they've got the offensive line to do it. I think we're starting to see that a little bit.
That was a huge problem for them last week.
Huge problem. Yeah. Huge problem. Going to continue to be a problem. The cavalry is not coming. No. There is no help coming. There's not much they can do to make that any better. It's going to limit what they can do on offense moving forward. And again, it's a team where, like, is that team going to be able to go to Baltimore in the cold in January and win?
Well, no, they're a dome team, if I'm not
mistaken,
mistaken, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
and they play like a dome team. And obviously, the receiver, right? The biggest thing you liked about their offense heading into this year was look how deep they're at receiver. Stephon Diggs is their third best receiver. Well, he's out for the year. We don't know when Nico Collins is coming back. Tank Dell's a good player, but it's one guy.
Tank Dell's not enough, though. Yeah, not by himself.
Well, we're talking about running backs kind of reviving their career a little bit. Mixon's been playing great after coming back from the ankle injury, so that's good to see. My guy, Joe Mixon, loved him forever.
That's a huge adapt. They have to adapt so much to be now we're a run team now. Now we're not. Yeah. Now we're not this pass threat team.
Bobby Slowick, their offensive coordinator, is a great offensive coordinator. So they're always going to be in a good schematic standpoint. But I think like there's just not. I can't scheme up. We can't block. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Well, I mean you can. But it's not the way they want to play. Because if you want to do that, then you have to keep running backs in, you have to keep tight ends in, 7-man protections, or get the ball off. That's not what they want to do. They want to take shots downfield. They want to have their three guys. So I like the Texans. And defensive line is fantastic. Like, I think that's a great foundation for them of like, we have an elite quarterback and an elite defensive line. That's a great way to start. Like, I think they need some more help on the offensive line. They're at least a year away from me from being serious contenders. The next one is one that people aren't going to think have a legitimate shot at the AFC, and I don't necessarily think they do either. But I think it's maybe the best value on the board right now is the Steelers at plus 16.
Dude, I love that, man. I was looking at that too. I was not that bad. I was just looking at their team, look at their record. Like they have a solid shot, man.
So here's what they got going for them, right? Start at the top. Obviously the defense, right? We know the defense is very good. Minkah Fitzpatrick, TJ Watt, Alonzo Highsmith, great players that play exactly. They know exactly how they fit in the scheme. They've been there for a long time. They're well coached. Great. Mike Tomlin has the highest floor of any coach in the NFL. He will put his team in a position to be competitive in the game they play. Is it always going to be pretty? Nope. Is there a lower ceiling on them than everybody else? Sure, you could argue that. But he gets his guys ready to go. He puts his team in a position to win. He is probably the most... They will not have a losing season. So one of the most consistent coaches there. So those are the things that are all going for them. What's working against them? How sustainable do we think the Russell Wilson thing is? Right? Like how Russell Wilson has always been a volatile player in so much that he's always kind of relied on hitting a high percentage of deep balls, which is just not, it's not as super sustainable, right? It's like the equivalent of golf of like, well, if I just make every 20-footer, I'm going to win the tournament.
No, for sure.
It's like, well, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Right? How sustainable is that? But listen, he's played much better than I or anybody else thought he was going to. Again, well coached. They're playing in a way that accents what he does well. They're not asking him to sit in the pocket and read things out. Part of the reason is he's 5'10". He physically can't see it.
Yeah.
Part of the other reason is that's never really been something he's good at, and he's kind of lost his athleticism, like that, like scramble around, make it happen behind the line, keep the eyes downfield, throw the deep ball thing. It's probably not there anymore. And I think as it gets colder and as we get more into the bad weather, that's going to start to be harder and harder to do. But they're able to run the ball. They got two really good running backs with Najee and I want to say Tyler Warren, but that's the guy from Penn State. Who's the backup running back? What's his name? Number 30. Jalen Warren? Is it Jalen Warren? I think it's Jalen Warren. So they're deep there. Freiermuth I like. Pickens is the hardest player for me to figure out in the NFL because he's so talented but so crazy. So I don't know what ultimately you're going to get out of him late in the year. But I like the Steelers, and I think at plus 1,600 they might be the best bet on the board. The Bengals at plus 1,900 is interesting to me because that's just, again, this is where the comeback player of the year thing doesn't mean, because like the reason they're plus 1,900 at 3 games under 500 or whatever they are in like third in their division is Burrow.
Yeah. Like
this is them saying Burrow makes them fringe contenders for the AFC. And if you think that, then how is he not AFC? Whatever. So the Bengals at plus 90. It's just interesting that they're that high. After that, it's the Chargers at plus 2,000. Just not enough there for them. In my opinion, love Harbaugh. Harbaugh's very similar to Tomlin in so much that like his teams are going to be tough. They're going to be competitive. They're not going to, if you get the Chargers, and you don't want to play the Chargers in the playoffs, I promise you that. Like just because Harbaugh teams will play a certain way and the floor on them is so high. And then after that, it gets crazy, right? The Colts at 3,900, the Jets at 4,900, the Dolphins, the Broncos, none of that's real. So like I said, if I had to bet this right now, I'd take the Chiefs because I think that's ultimately what's going to happen. Plus, I really want the Chiefs to lose a couple of games here so I can get some better numbers on them.
Yeah, for sure.
Because they're ripe. People are misguided on the Chiefs. They're deluding themselves on it because they don't want it to be real. And we'll talk about that in a minute. But I think if I had to bet one right now, just best value, if you want a value play, I would take the Steelers at plus 1,600 and just hope that they can finish strong throughout the year, get a couple home playoff games, crazy hard place to go play in January, and then you're basically just trusting that defense to go win them games in the playoffs, which is not impossible. All right. The one we want to do, the one everybody wants to talk about, the Super Bowl. Now, touched on it a little bit earlier. Been talking about it all year. The Chiefs are very, very, very clearly, to me, the Super Bowl favorites. It's not reflected on the board. There's teams within shouting distance of them on the board. But there is... So, a perfect example is going into Monday night. I'm going into Monday night, playing the Bucs at home. The total in that game was, I think I got it at 44.5, finished around 45. And I had the over, had it as the lock of the week cashed. 4 straight locks of the week have cashed, by the way. Nobody talking about that. Everybody talking about when they started 0-5. Nobody talking about 4 straight cashes. People were talking to me about, well, why would you bet over in Chiefs game? Their offense isn't good. And it's like, this is just a legitimate question I have for everybody out there, for you, Tyler, here in the room. It's like, do people think Patrick Mahomes is bad now? Is that what people think has happened? That he's just not good? Or is it maybe that they're so comfortable in these games, they know they're so much better than everybody they play, that they don't have to go out there and have their best performance. They don't need to take crazy risks on offense. They're going to score as many points as they need to score. And because of their defense, they often don't need to score that many points. So they're not going to do anything that is at all risky or creative or gives the game away, because they don't give a fuck about these games. All they care about is getting home field advantage in the playoffs, which they will get in the first round bye, which they will get. They can sleepwalk their way to that at this point. They have a top 5 defense in the NFL. They have a top 5 offensive line in the NFL, and they have the best quarterback on the planet. That makes you the favorite. Yeah. As long as that all stays the same, unless we get major injuries to the defense, major injuries to the offensive line, or Mahomes goes out, which, again, it almost happened on Monday, so I understand. But until that happens, they are the clear-cut favorites. They got better after last year, and they added DeAndre Hopkins. They've gotten better since the beginning of the year. Yeah. Cancel Christmas, boy. Like, I understand people don't want to believe it. People don't want it to be true. It's the exact same thing we saw all those years with the Pats, where people would spend months and months and months trying to talk themselves into ways why the Patriots weren't going to win the Super Bowl. Oh, well, Tom's older and they don't have any weapons, and you can't keep it going forever. And it's the exact same thing right here about Mahomes. Like, oh, the Kelsey, he's old now, and Rashee Rice got hurt. We can't win the Super Bowl. Rashee Rice got hurt. Gives a fuck. They know exactly how they want to play. They can play multiples. We talk about these teams, right? We talk about like teams like the Lions and the Eagles who have to play a certain way, and even the Ravens, they have to play a certain way. The Chiefs can give it to you any way you want to go. Saw that on Monday, right? We've seen it all year long where they've won these kind of knockdown, drag-out, defensive bang, 22-17 type games. And then they get into a game against the Bucs who have a bad defense and a good offense. Shout out to Baker. Absolutely making it happen on the road with no weapons. My boy Sterling Sharp also having a career renaissance. Love that Bucs team. So much fun to watch. But they understood they needed to score in that game. So what do? We'll score 30. Didn't play great in the first half. Doesn't matter. We'll score enough in the second half. We'll go to overtime. Win the coin toss. Kick it to us. Touchdown. Game over. Win again.
Crazy over to hit, man. Yeah. Didn't look fun for a bit, though. That first half was not fun to watch.
But they are inevitable. Never nervous, so never was nervous because they are inevitable. It is always like the gap between Mahomes and everybody else's quarterback is so big. And I'm even talking about like when we get Bills Chiefs in a couple weeks here, and that's what I'm talking about. For the Bills to win the AFC, Allen has to play at a superhuman level. He cannot play great, because if he plays great and Mahomes plays good, Mahomes is better. So you have to go to such an insane level to try to erase the quarterback advantage, and then you still have to deal with their offensive line, and then you have to deal with their defense, and you have to deal with Andy Reid. He might be the best offensive head coach of all time.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's so much going for them. And again, people just, because it's not fun. It's not interesting for me to sit here in August like I did, in September like I did, in October like I did, and tell you that the Chiefs are going to win again. But they are. I'm not here to tell you people what you want to hear. I'm here to tell you what you need to hear. What you need to hear is that the Chiefs are a goddamn juggernaut, the likes of which it's historic. And listen, I personally, I'm not a Chiefs fan. I like seeing, there's I would like to see, obviously, the Lions winning the Super Bowl would be more fun. The Ravens, the Bills, the Eagles, all that would be more fun than the Chiefs winning the Super Bowl. But at some point, you got to just understand that what you're witnessing here is historic. And I think maybe people are a little tainted, people our age, people a little younger than us, who lived through the Brady Patriots, of like, oh yeah, there's always just this like juggernaut team in the NFL who's a Super Bowl contender every year and who might rip off 2 or 3 Super Bowls in a row. It's like, that's not normal. We might not ever see this again.
It's not normal at all.
So my advice to everybody would be, I have 2 pieces of advice for you. 1, root against the Chiefs for the next little bit, because we want them to drop a couple games. If they can lose, I hope they get blown out by the Bills. I hope they lose by 30 to the Bills, because then they're going to drop to like probably that plus 650, plus 700 range on the board, and I will absolutely nuke that. I've never bet a future of the year before. I'm telling you right now, if I can get the Chiefs at anything above plus 500 or better. If at any point in time, this is a Diceshaker guarantee. If I can get the Chiefs at plus 500 to win the Super Bowl at any point this year, barring it's not because of an injury, I will future of the year that. I will 10 times units that bet. I'm that confident in what we are going to get as an outcome there for the Super Bowl. So that's the bet, is the Chiefs. We wait, but that's the bet. Now, we'll go through the rest of the board just to have a little fun with it. The Lions at plus 480, we talked about it. Obviously a great team, great story. Love watching them play. They play a fantastic style. We love Dan Campbell. Those fans deserve a winner. That building, and when we get to the playoffs, is going to be rocking. That'll probably be as close to a college atmosphere as a pro team can get. It'll be fantastic. They just have to play a certain way to win. Mm-hmm. And so they have a bigger margin for error than the Chiefs, who no matter which way the game goes, the Chiefs can adapt to it. If the Lions were to play the Chiefs in the Super Bowl and they were to get jumped and be down 14-0, they're not going to be able to contend with that. They're not going to be able to come back from that. Very similarly with the Ravens, and again, the Ravens have the defensive problems, so that's why they're plus 650. The Bills plus 850. I think that's probably a good value. I think they should probably be close. Like, I see them really more on par with the Ravens. The Ravens, you could argue, probably maybe a higher floor on offense because they can give it to you kind of multiple ways with that run game, and then also put it in Lamar's hands and let him make it happen, whereas the Bills really just kind of go as Allen goes. So 850 to me is it's a good price for them. I don't want to bet it, but again, if you think they're beating the Bills, or if you think they're beating the Chiefs in 2 weeks, then plus 850 might not be a bad idea because they're going to be like plus 400 if they win that game. Mm-hmm. Niners plus 1,000. We already talked about the Niners. That's throwing money away. Never do that. Eagles plus 1,200. Probably pretty good value there. Again, I think they could easily come out of the NFC. And if they come out of the NFC, they got a shot.
Yeah.
But I think we've seen what this Eagles team does in a Super Bowl against Mahomes. They played fantastic in a Super Bowl against Pat Mahomes. Didn't matter. Still lost. So it's just hard. It's just hard to pick anybody but Mahomes right now. And then after that, it's a bunch of the teams that we said don't have it: the Vikings, the Packers, the Texans, the Commanders. All that stuff is throwing your money away. So like I said, it's not the answer that I want to give you guys, but it's the answer I've been giving all year. I'm consistent on it. I believe in it. Every single sign I see points to we are getting a Chiefs three-peat. And I honestly think it's at this point, again, it's similar to the LeBron thing, where people didn't like LeBron. The Sidney Crosby thing, a little hockey reference for you guys, where people didn't like Crosby. It's like at some point, you just have to shut up and realize what you're witnessing is historic and you may not ever see it again, and you should appreciate it before it's gone. Because if you love football, if you love football like some of you people tell me you do, then we are witnessing as close, they're not perfect, but they are built perfectly. I will say that. They are built in a way to maximum. They know they have the best quarterback in the world, and they've built that roster in a way that maximizes that. Now, the argument against that would be like, what do you mean they don't have skill players? First of all, they have DeAndre Hopkins now, so it's not like they don't have skill players. But you don't. When you have a quarterback like Mahomes, you can have, and the Patriots did this for Tom Brady's basically entire career. We can have a bunch of low spades at receiver because Mahomes is so great, he's going to elevate those guys. Yep. He's going to make those guys better. And then what they do is they have a fantastic offensive line and a fantastic defense. And I said it earlier, if you have a great defense, have a great offensive line, have the best quarterback, you're the best team. That's just those are the three most important things. So we should appreciate the Chiefs and what they are. So that's really the outlook for the season as I see it. There's a halfway point. Lots of compelling things to pay attention to throughout the rest of the season. The NFC North and the AFC North are going to be fantastic division races coming down the stretch with the Lions, the Vikings, the Packers, and then obviously the Ravens, the Steelers playing good ball, and then the Bengals being desperate and needing it. Those are going to be fantastic to watch. The NFC South, I think, is going to be interesting. Can the Falcons hang on? And then we can also watch the dumpster fires, right? Quick ranking of the dumpster fires that are going to be interesting. Obviously, the Cowboys. No team is more fun to watch implode than Dallas because just too many crazy characters down there, too many expectations. They're always going to like the Cowboys might be at some point in the season like 5-10 and still playing national TV games because they're the Cowboys. Yeah. And that's just going to and that's the best thing. I love that. I love about Cowboys fans is no matter what has happened to them throughout the season, every week by the time Sunday rolls around, they've convinced themselves they're going to win the game because they're the Cowboys. And it's really fun to watch a fan base of people I don't like really just get their hopes up every week, and then just 3 hours of misery.
I bet my life I'm a dice shaker. Electric lights on a skyscraper. It's up and downs for